Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of whatever we're calling this thing, but we're back with the Cannibal Video Boys. Lee?
Hello, hello.
Oh, I said
Howdy.
hi to Lee first, Stefan. You just hold on.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining me. You know, this is a great time. Oh, and Stefan's
It
here.
is.
Boo-doo, but it's leave.
I did ask Ian if he wanted to do some Roadhead, and he said no, Ian is not interested in Roadhead. And
Wow.
so,
You think he understood what you meant?
oh, I think he
'Cause
understood.
usually
How else
you
could he
ask
have
him on
interpreted it?
Wednesdays, but a Saturday he usually has plans.
No, I did actually send this trailer to him, and he's like, "Nope, not interested." But I did reach out to you, Steph, and I was like, "Let's cover something together." And I had an assortment of screeners, and you're
Oh
like,
yes, I
immediately
jumped right
like,
at this one.
"We're going for this one."
Jumped right on the roadhead.
Yes. So Roadhead, it is directed by one David Del Rio. Stefan, can you give me? Well, actually, you know what, Lee, because Lee is the one who wrote down the entire plot in his notes. Can you give me a quick synopsis of Roadhead?
Well, I can't give you a quick one because I've written down every plot point in my notes. This is a movie about Conan the Barbarian who hunts down people in the desert to decapitate them, and kind of a wacky group of people who ends up there and faces his wrath. In a tale of sunny and dry revenge in the desert.
Some hijinks certainly ensue in this desert.
I'm leaving out
And
the parts that happen only at the end that are like,
we
wow,
will-
the movie's changing now, but that's not a
Yeah.
synopsis. That's for the okay.
We'll get into spoilers with
appetite
this
there.
thing.
Sure will.
Because there is a third act twist kind of thing, at least a reveal.
Something.
There's more
Something
to it than just that, people. It's not just that.
There's more to this thing than meets the eye, one could say. So, Stefan, what did you think of the Roadhead?
I thought some of the movie was really good. Like, it was fun. There were things going there. I enjoyed some of the characters. I thought at other times, I was like, what are we doing here? This seems to be going in a totally different direction that I wasn't necessarily planning for. But overall, it was something. It was like, all of it was competently shot.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters were kind of interesting and fun. They at least all looked interesting. Some of the lines, not the best, but overall, I think it was enjoyable.
So you were kind of a fan.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Roadhead.
Okay. Lee. Fair
Sorry.
enough.
Just trying to work that sentence in. It's perfect. Excellent. Indulge me for a moment here. I'm a Tarantino defender and a Tarantino fan, and have been for a long time now.
We
And
love
I feel like
This is interesting.
this film is the result of some people just pouring all of their stuff into the Tarantino machine and kind of like turning the crank until enough stuff came out to be like, this is our movie, right? It's like a tale of like feminine revenge and like irreverent dialogue and like absurdist kind of weird twists and like non-paid off things on purpose. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. Not really. I agree with Stefan. It looks like a real movie. It's like competently, shot and like put together and everything. I didn't mind a lot of what I assume people will mind, which is some of the dialogue choices or like woke stuff or like whatever. Some of that's okay. Some of that's too much. But no, by the end I was like, why are we here? What is this? What's going on? Like, I like when things are about something or when you pay things off or when you don't, but you give me like gratuitous stuff. And it doesn't have to make sense, but it has to feel a certain way to me. And this did not. And I was very by the end I was just pacing around the house like, why is this? No, not a movie. I was walking, thumbs down.
Kind of pointless, or what would you say? Confused?
If it's pointless, you can make that the point. You can be
Okay.
like, oh, you think this means something? No, this is just life, kid. But it didn't really do that either for me. It felt really weird. I wasn't sure what they were trying to do here.
I mean, we can get in some of the themes. There's obviously some themes here you kind of touched on with, I don't know if it's just like general misogyny or some, you called it wokeism. I don't know if... I did read the only IMDb comment about this movie was like, I watched 15 minutes of this trash and I turned it off because it's so woke or something. I have it written down. And I didn't quite understand that.
Well, okay.
To some people,
some
having
of
a
you.
gay main character means
Yeah,
it's woke
is it
as
'cause-
fuck and they can't tolerate that.
there is some like woke dialogue choices that like stood out to me about like I don't need your validation or like oh god what is it? There's a bunch of weird stuff. What is wrong with straight men and all that stuff? Like there's a
Sure.
bunch of things you could lift out. Those are not in the first 15 minutes though.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I have a few clips we'll pull later when we get into spoilers because it does touch on some of those things you're talking about. But I do feel like
Yeah.
I don't know, just because you have two gay characters and the movie isn't about them being gay, it's just that they're gay and there's a black woman with them who's their friend who is a little saucy occasionally and says some like it's just to me it sounded like a 20-year-old talking, honestly. Like I guess is what I
Yeah.
would say.
It
sounded
didn't
natural
jump
a
out
lot
at me
of
as
times.
super
Yeah.
woke.
No.
Nice.
Um
I think
so
that
what,
I think
what
that
we're
if
getting
you're-
at here, Lee,
yeah.
is you're old as shit. That's the problem.
Well,
We're
Lee's,
old-
No,
Lee's
no,
a
no.
boomer.
I'm just kidding.
No, like I took it to be like an elder millennial writing for Zoomers or
really?
like something because I don't talk to Zoomers like directly, and this sounded it was so densely packed with all that stuff that I thought it was almost like a parody of how they would talk. That stuff did not really bother me though because
Yeah.
I thought like 2/3 of the time it ended up being funny or like it worked fine as dialogue. I just
Yeah.
certain things stood out as like what are you doing? This is like too much or something. This is too weird.
Interesting. So you thought it sounded unnatural. To me, I think a lot of it
Sometimes,
did sound
yeah.
natural. But yeah, not everything landed for sure.
In the same way, Tarantino's dialogue is not natural, but it's like a weird, like exaggerated version, right? Where it's this like
Where you go,
extra
oh, that's
sort
how
of
my
thing.
friends talk, but your friends aren't actually that smart and
Where
talking like
yeah,
that kind
and
of
like
thing.
and like 90% of the time they don't land those awesome dialogue choices, right? In like real life.
I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with dialogue when it's dialogue, but when dialogue is filled with adrenaline and it's still coming off as quippy and witty, I'm like, come on, jerk, you should have been running. Why are you quipping?
I hear
Time to
you.
quip, yeah.
I mean, I think the main difference here with like a Tarantino is his dialogue scenes can be tense and dramatic and wax and wane through the tension and stuff like that because it's so well written. And while it might not be authentic or realistic, it still really works in a movie sense, in a dramatic movie sense. I'm not a Tarantino defender. I generally don't like his movies. I think his movies are cool scenes, but not a cohesive story a lot of the times for me. But I understand the comparisons you're getting at here because a lot of times this movie just kind of goes into these long conversations where it's like quick and witty banter that like I don't know, one half of it kind of works for me and the other half doesn't. At least with the humor and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, I got to a point where like I don't know if we are in the spoiler section yet
Not
or
yet,
not,
not yet.
technically. Okay,
Hold
there's
on,
a
we'll
point
get
where
there.
I think I've spoiled 3 things already. There's a point where she kind of like explains the plot of the movie, and it kind of reminded me of the Tarantino scenes where he's like, "Oh, Superman is the real man, and then the Clark Kent is the fake identity," or like, it's like Tarantino's letting you read his diary. I don't tip for like this and that, or how come this? It had a weird like it kind of broke through to be like you are summing up the entire like patriarchy as a systemic problem like in natural dialogue, which sounds like ridiculous to me when you're in the desert running for your life, as you pointed out.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It doesn't. It feels pandering, or it feels like an afterthought, as opposed to like really exploring that stuff throughout the entire movie, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But usually when you have a movie that's like doing pandering and stuff, it's also following a structure that's very familiar to you, and you go, ah, yes, then this is going to happen, and this
True.
is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is the opposite of that, where you could not guess from one scene to the next where things are going to go down and how they're going to happen, and that I thought was refreshing. It didn't almost ever go a place that I would want it to go, but it is always nice to, as a person who can usually guess the outcome of a movie, almost in the beginning, you're like, oh, judging by this, that, and that, that's your main character, this person who lived, this person, whatever. Like, this was not that. And I like that. I will say that was an effective tool by, I don't know who wrote this, Justin something. Bravo.
Yeah, I kind of think of this movie as like a silly, dark humor version of The Hills Have Eyes or something like that.
Yeah, like a bad version of movie of Murder Party.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Party's great.
I didn't hate this movie, but there's a couple things that work against it for me. The setting, for one, gets old and repetitive. And
The
while the
desert?
camera,
You don't like the desert?
I don't like movies set in
Is that the
deserts. I
salt
notoriously
flats?
don't.
Salt flats in like
California,
that?
somewhere in California. I know that they shot this.
I thought it was picturesque. It certainly looked beautiful. But you run a problem. Is that a pun, by the way? Is it isolate? Like, is that the?
I don't know.
That's how I took it.
Is that a
yeah.
real place? I don't know. But like, you run a problem when you have a thing where you can see like 360 degrees for like miles. You can't keep getting snuck up on. That doesn't make any sense. Like, you should be able to know something is coming, and we definitely don't do things in realism there when you can see literally as far as your eyes can see in any direction.
It's just, it gets so boring visually, and like no matter what kind of camera work you're throwing in here, everything is still the same. It's all the same. It's this flat, endless thing, and you see some trees in the distance that they, for whatever reason, never get to. It just feels like they're constantly going in this big circle and this like
It's a brigadoon.
and it got kind of old for me. And then on top of that, there's many scenes that feel repetitive where it's, oh, the guy with the sword's here, and then we make some quirky jokes and then get away and then repeat and repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound like that photography guy's boyfriend. He's like, oh, this dirt taking it, and then he goes on this thing of like, oh wait, no, there's so much nuance to this little patch of dirt. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm saying. No, I think that the desert is all at once like one of the great American like settings for a movie, and also like a hilarious crutch that everyone uses. And it's like, well, we're not sure where the kids are gonna be yet, but for now we're just gonna say the desert, and then maybe we'll like think of something more specific, right? So like I had the same reaction once it was like, oh, it's a desert movie. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, like, The Hills Have Eyes in the remake,
Yeah.
especially, like, it doesn't get boring though. Like, they use that setting because they make it isolating, and then they add some other surrounding settings as well, which this movie does too.
Yeah, but like in a worse version, like the houses in the Hills Have Eyes, creepy and awesome. Like there are hills and like, you know,
Yes.
different types of desert. While you have all the same type of desert, you don't get that same bonus of like, oh, we're making a movie in the woods because we have no, you know, money for sets. But in the woods, it's like, oh, those trees over there look different than these trees over here. Or you have the bonus of you can make it look all the same and be like, I don't know where I am, I'm so confused. But the desert all looks the same, and like it's because they probably are in the same, like, you know, like square mile of desert, but that can work against you. I do think I do enjoy the desert. I understand I only have one setting, like what you're gonna do, and the desert works for that. It's honestly more refreshing to me than the woods, because at least I know you had to go to a desert. That's certainly an inconvenient place to film, just baking your batteries and actors the whole time.
Yeah, and they do have nighttime shots, and they clearly have lights. Like, it's lit well. The movie is shot very well. There's a few scenes where it's like, this is going on for quite a bit. It's all the steady cam, and it's like, I don't know, decent filmmaking. It's just like, let the scene go on for a while. It seems like efficient. Oh my God, Lee just threw something. Did it go where you wanted it to hit the trash?
Oh no.
He wasn't even looking.
All right, fair enough.
I was looking at, into the camera. I was triangulating the size.
Gotcha.
I was trying to do that without interrupting you. I apologize.
Oh no, it wasn't interrupted.
No, like
I was waiting for put the ting 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 ting.
Yeah.
I muted myself so you couldn't hear it bouncing between every wall in the hallway.
I was waiting for like the shelf behind him to just collapse and shit.
I threw it that way. No, yeah. Well, so they clearly didn't have a lot of money.
No.
And they clearly pulled off some stuff that they were trying to do that I did think was cool without a lot of money or whatever, right? That cannot be whatever. But yeah.
I mean,
agree on your other points.
Ultimately, yes. I think the cast was good. I think the actors did a pretty good job. I grew to like the characters. They did put a lot of time into growing the characters, or at least two of them, in a way. I wish the end was a little more satisfying, and we can get to that in a little bit. Ultimately, though, I think this movie is just kind of forgettable. And what's weird, like, to me, it's called Roadhead, and it does feature Roadhead, and it does have a lot of talk about sex and jokes about that and people's sexuality and stuff like that. But for a movie that's like trying to at least catch your attention with some like risque, you know, the pun, the Roadhead, like you immediately think of blowjobs in cars, I believe is what that is referring to.
Oh my God. I'm a good Christian. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying.
Is that what it's meant this whole time?
It's just this movie is really kind of tame beyond some language.
You have 1 minute of things like that in the hour and a half, just so you can have a trailer that has 40 seconds of gah.
Yeah. So
it's smart. That's what you do. His house is on fire.
I feel like my kids are playing drums or some shit. I don't know what the hell that is.
You hear that bottle like still bouncing down the hallway. It's like, oh no.
Some say it's still bouncing.
So we can get into spoilers here in a moment, but go ahead, Lee, if you have something.
I agree. I think Stefan's saying the same thing. Is that it actually does feel like a bait and switch. Up until you brought that up, I had forgotten that it was called that, and I'd forgotten that like that is what like draws you in. And it says like, oh, like gory comedy about, and you're like, oh hey, okay.
Yeah, some of these.
But obviously, it's kind of a pun, and it's also kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I mean, at least they do feature that act within the movie like 2 times.
I would only do it. I would only do it once, honestly. I think doing it twice is a mistake.
I think once, 3 times, or 10 times. Those are your only options.
It's
twice
every
is bad.
scene.
Every season. It's an anthology.
It's constantly happening.
Of Roadhead moments. There was also some interesting storytelling elements where this woman, and this isn't very much of a spoiler as it happens pretty much right at the beginning of the movie, where she is actively talking to her boyfriend who's not there.
Yeah.
And it was like internal monologue or dialogue with somebody.
It was external sometimes.
But then, other characters would react to her talking to no one, so she's like, what's going on there? Like, she's hallucinating?
Oh, yeah, she's a crazy person.
Okay, that's fair.
I wonder if he's even actually working out outside her house. I don't want to spoil, actually. I'll bring that up later.
Actually, that's an interesting point.
We blurred the line. Yes, we'll put a pin in that.
We'll put a pin in that.
Phantom boyfriend.
Let's just go around. We'll see. We'll do recommendations, and then we'll move on to some spoilers. So, Stefan, would you recommend this movie to people?
I give it a recommendation. It's not like a full-fledged hard recommendation. It's like a goofy movie. It's not like a lot of things in its entirety that I've seen a lot recently. It's certainly competently made, and I got a chuckle every now and again. I enjoyed some performances. Do I think I would ever watch it again? No, but again, I don't need a movie that's going to be perfect for rewatch. Just need something to pass the time. It's like not a tight hour and a half. I think maybe there's a little bit of filler, but like it moves along.
Lee.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I don't think it's very good, but like we're showing clips here. If you haven't heard of this, if you watch everything. If you watch things that look much worse than that, and that's whetting your appetite or like getting you interested, then like go for it. But I don't know. Personally, I would not recommend it. In general,
I don't think it's badly made. It was when I started this movie, I immediately thought I would hate it based on the opening song.
I like the opening song.
Here's the opening song.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, and the fuck out immediately. I was like, this is not
when I
working
dance
for me.
like this.
That's something that would be on like the senior trip soundtrack. I'm like, get it.
Yeah.
What are we listening to? Sublime with Rome at the Warped Tour? This is awesome. This is great.
Was not a fan. Not a fan of that.
Right?
And immediately I was worried that this is going to be a movie that there just isn't enough plot, and it's going to feel like they're stretching shit out. And I feel like they do, but they fill it with these long sequence of dialogue that is... It does feel like they spent time trying to make this witty banter, but it just does become a little uninteresting to me. And ultimately, I'm going to forget about this movie in like a week. So I don't know who I'd recommend this movie to. Because it's like,
is that a recommend or not a recommend?
I don't know. Some of it's funny. I did chuckle a few times. There's some fun, absurd humor to this thing. There's not enough horror. It's not scary at all. It's not gory. It doesn't go for it enough. For a movie called Roadhead, it should be over the top a bit more. And there is heart to this. There's characters, dramatic moments. Then I grew to like a lot of the characters, or at least 2 of them. And then ultimately I was disappointed by the ending. So I don't know. It's if you're bored and you have nothing else to watch, maybe start it and see if it works for you.
Never heard a better recommendation than that.
I said kind of a similar thing. Like, hey, if you watch everything, just watch this one too.
I don't
it's
disagree
fine.
with a lot of
it's
the
not
statements
bad.
you're watching. I think it's just that I would. My bar is very low for what I like enjoy and things are good, and like this definitely leaped over my low bar.
It's better than thousands of movies. Like, it's not like the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, it's not horrible.
It's not bad enough, and it's not good enough. That's the problem. The story's not
fine.
interesting enough to me.
Yeah, I'll go into my digs on, in spoilers.
All right, so this movie is out on the 4th of June if you want to check it out on VOD, but we are going to go ahead and spoil it now and get into some nitty-gritty details and other things. So stick around if you want. Stefan.
So I think the biggest problem this movie has is it's like two different movies. So the first half and that like last third are not the same movie. And I think you could have made two different movies that could have been awesome. So that, like, the outlandish characters that you meet in a desert caravan world is fun, but because it's just this little bit of the movie, there's not enough money to put on that part. So if that would have been a whole community of crazy people, like those lawless areas you see in the desert, like in those documentaries from Vice, like that could have been a fun thing in itself. Like, or maybe they're going to one of those towns for a party or something, and there's some weird, you know, Knights Templar dude cutting heads off, like, and that could have been a thing as people are taking drugs and not realizing what's real and what's not, and there he is lopping off heads. I think that would have been a better movie than what we had here. I think this movie was fine. That guy is a fun bad guy, or like, you know, guy who defends the outpost, but ultimately he starts to talk and you realize he's kind of a fun, nice, like, you know, lovable idiot type. And I think that's the biggest mistake is you want that I don't talk, maybe he has no tongue, like, you know, just he is a murderer. What do they call that? An executioner. Like, that is him. Like, I shouldn't see him. Maybe he should be wearing a mask. He's a very big, imposing dude. Like, that's strong. Like, you got that. Use that to your advantage. Once you weaken his character by giving away his disposition, and letting him get, like, as you see right here, like, he does get beaten. Had she not turned around, she was going to finish him via small fists.
Yeah, you're right. When they reveal his disposition, it does make you, like him a little bit. When he should be, like, this...
I shouldn't know anything about him.
Well, I mean, that's the whole turn of the movie.
If it's that movie, you shouldn't know anything about him. Yeah.
Right.
If you're going to turn, he should then turn to be her ally with, like, oh, you're very pretty, blah, 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 blah. No, they don't let me get first cracks. I should, though, shouldn't I? You should, blah, blah, blah. And then they get into it.
That earns my respect.
It's just the aimlessness of the movie where it's just like these characters reacting to stuff, but there's no real story going on. There's no momentum to anything.
Yeah.
And you had opportunity there with that, like you're talking about with introducing that cult. And yeah, if they would have twisted or turned or something like that. It's also weird that, like, they end up killing the main woman.
All of them.
All of them, yeah.
Every one of them dies, and they killed the guy I liked the best first, and I was like, I like that one. He was funny. I liked his whole demeanor, everything about him I was like, okay, he's charming. He has the best lines. This one, who I found kind of whiny, lives to be the final girl, and I was like, okay, I get why he lived and not the one that's friends with the girl, because you want a conflict between your characters, and that's obviously, it makes sense. But then just how everything worked out here, this I actually loved. Do you have the audio of that part?
No, when he hits her.
Oh, sorry, girl.
I liked him. I liked him.
Oh shit, sorry, honey.
He was really good when they have that conversation where it turns from being dumb to, like, heartfelt. He's doing, like, the holding back the tears thing, and I'm like, oh, he's an actual actor. This is awesome. This is refreshing.
I liked his character, Alex, and I liked her character as well. She's supposed to be standoffish and angry because she's found out her boyfriend cheated on her, and it clearly took a mental toll on her.
Yeah.
And so she's lashing out at everyone and her friends and everything. She doesn't have any friends except for Brian, who gets killed immediately in the movie.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the main crux, is like her and Alex, who don't have a friendship, working together to try and survive. And they put the time in for that stuff.
Yeah.
And they ultimately do come together. And then they kill her off, and it's like, what? What was the point of all this?
Unceremoniously, she just, like, it's like, oh, she's gone.
Well, there's no growth here. Like, we spent so much time learning about how this boyfriend possibly cheated on her and is haunting her and all this stuff, and then to kill her, it's like this whole story.
But it subverts your expectations. What you're going to expect is that she's going to see the phantom that is her boyfriend. He's going to be berating her during a fight, and she's going to swing and go to kill the boyfriend, and he's going to, evaporate away, and it's going to be the Jolly Green Giant there, and he's going to be dead, and she'll have got it.
But in a movie that everything is so absurd and nonsensical and random, I would have kind of liked this stereotypical tropey thing. At least it would have anchored it in a way.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I will like double down on that because she dies right after she basically resolves her inner conflict with the phantom boyfriend and presumably dismisses him forever, right? Which you're like, oh, that must be something, because then later Alex sees Phantom Brian, I think his name is, and also like ends up laugh crying like Jesse driving away at the end of Breaking Bad, proper, and that's kind of like his whatever, and then he just gets killed or something. So I was sitting there like, does this mean anything? Does this make any sense? And I don't think it does. I think it's just a fucking, it doesn't, it's just a dumb thing that they put in the movie.
It's like it makes sense if everybody dies horrifically and Hills Have Eyes, and it's like this really bleak movie, and you're like, oh man, that was soul crushing. These people went through so much, and we thought they were gonna survive, and then they did. But this is like funny and stupid, and like none of the threats feel real because they're making jokes the entire time about it.
Yeah.
And so then by the end, when it's like kind of mean spirited that these people that we've spent this whole time with get killed, it's just ultimately kind of confusing and weird.
Well, because there's no like, oh, you need to learn how to let go and like move on and like resolve these inner problems, and then it doesn't matter if you live or die or something. But that isn't really what they're doing either. I was like, what is happening?
Can I rewrite the movie ending for you? So here's the ending they should have done. Right, this is the ending. He gets into the car and he's driving away. Our executioner just got killed. He's the only one alive of this friend group. He's driving away with the thing. And as he takes the turn, he hits one of the two surviving bad guys, because two of the guys are still alive. He hits one with his car, and he's driving. And now he has the little, like, spirit away version of his fucking boyfriend comes up, and they're talking, they're chatting, and he's like, oh, buck up, blah, blah, blah. The boyfriend goes down, he closes his eyes, he hits the one rock that they framed up earlier on in the middle of the desert. Just as the guy behind him is going to stab him with a thing, that guy flies through the windshield and dies, and our final girl gets to live, and he just drives away into the sunset, and then walks past the frame, would be our transvestite girl going, gotta find some new dick. Like, that would have been her thing.
And then it goes, ride with me, and something when you ride with me.
Yeah.
I read my script. What do you got?
Two problems with that. Well, three problems. One, I don't think she's a transvestite. I think she said she was a man.
Isn't that
just
a
dresses like a
transvestite?
woman.
Drag queen, whatever you want to say.
I don't know. I'm
not woke. I'm
not woke enough. But I'm not trying to misrepresent somebody. But either way, clearly there is a limited budget to this thing. Because earlier in the movie, when they lock their stuff in the car, it's just like, just break the window. But they're not going to do that because they cannot damage this van.
But that in any other movie would be the car you could explode.
100%.
It's just like, it's just an old minivan.
Yes. And so at times this movie does feel like it is really trying to make something without any money. Sure. The heads in this movie, the little practical
I like those. That's charming.
You don't like the heads?
It is like, this scene was cool. It looks pretty cool. When he lifts the head from the front, that looks awful but funny.
Had they done it from the side, that would have been perfect.
When he holds it up and you see the back of the head, it actually looked cool. I didn't get that, of course.
The sawing of someone's head off I'm like, oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Like an Al-Qaeda video.
I think your ending is better. That would have brought
My endings are always better. I should be a writer.
The roadhead thing back in there.
Well, and the like triple of like someone getting roadhead and then closing their eyes and then hitting something, or like panicking at like the last minute, only doing something.
Close his eyes for so long. Why would he close his eyes for so long? Who does that?
Well,
he's enraptured in the pleasure step.
Stefan, the pleasure was too intense. God damn it. It was just too much for him to understand.
If I'm driving, I'm like a guy on PCP. My eyes don't close at all. I'm staring. I'm like, is that a guy?
So, we can talk about some of the themes here, like we touched on earlier. I don't know if it's just like a criticism of like conservative thinking, but I have a few clips I pulled because they like even referenced the president at one point. Like, obviously, like a Trump reference.
That's that like fourth wallish breaking speech I was talking about.
Here, I'll play it.
Plot of the movie. Yeah.
Every boss I'll have, every boyfriend, every manager, every fucking president, I'm gonna see one of those cape-wearing fucks who killed my best friend and would rather hold me hostage as a fucking baby factory than let me just live.
Yeah. I found that dumb not for the speech, for the fact that they're even sitting there talking.
It was
they're
frustrating.
Still in enemy zone.
Yeah, like, I don't necessarily like, whatever, that theme is fine. We can explore that because there's obviously something to that, especially if you're criticizing conservative thinking. Because they do have values that kind of align with that thinking in some ways. But it just doesn't fit at this time, at this moment, and it doesn't sell that theme enough throughout the entire movie. It literally has to come out and tell you it like that.
Exactly. right? Like, it would have been awesome if someone else had, could have been like, actually, it's kind of a conflict between these, like, regressive, because, hey, this is why I left L.A., like, shut up with that.
Yeah.
I've made you not gay by electrocuting you, blah, blah, blah. All these little things are, like, peppered in to be like,
too, yes.
oh, like, those are the bad people. And, yeah, and she says, yeah, and, like, to have someone else just be like, oh, they want to turn her into, like, just a baby maker with no agency, and she wants to do blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, when the movie just tells you that, right? It like undercuts the whole thing, and they don't earn that or whatever.
It's so weird when you outright say that stuff, how it does undercut your message, even though that is specifically the message you're trying to get across. For whatever reason, subtext in a movie works so much better because it doesn't feel like the movie. I don't know if it's just like it doesn't feel like the movie's telling you. It feels like you're discovering that yourself or something.
It like breaks the spell that a movie can have on you. Yeah.
Why have that at a moment to like take the piss out of it by having her smoke a J and sit there while she should be in peril and running for her life? If you need to express these thoughts, if you're a writer and you need to get them out, why not have them said by the little like Grand Poobah Pope guy as a dig against her? You will only ever be a blah blah. Anywhere you go,
sure.
You're this, you're that. You're like the exact same sentence, but said coming from the other angle, like. Almost like you're in like The Hunt did, like things like that, where you're like oh yes, you're putting some power into those statements because this person actually believes those things, and like that's parody in itself, but it also has a message, and it wouldn't be said at a time of peril; it would be said at a time of power, which makes sense.
Yes, I agree. I think you're supposed to get lost in a story, and when you are slapped across the face with a theme, a message, it takes you out of the story. Because it was super unnatural and it was super frustrating at the time. In their defense,
unless Kevin Smith or Tarantino does it, in which case you're like, oh, this is awesome.
But that's
this guy's
like
explaining the movie to me.
That's like all their movie is, though, is those scenes of us.
They
talking.
also choose when to do those scenes. Like,
they're much better at it, obviously, definitely, 100%. The only good part about it for me,
Bruce Willis tied up to a chair with a ball gag in his mouth, and it pops out, and he goes, "I'm just a baby making factory," and blah, like that doesn't happen that way.
I'm just as you might think I'm the bad guy, but see, I'm just as much of a victim as anyone else caught in this systemic cycle of like abuse and crime.
Yeah.
That would be funny because the bad guys would just sit there and be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Yeah.
The only like silver lining for me was that she's acknowledging that this experience is going to change her ability to like relate to normal people, elsewhere like in her life, which most movies don't. Acknowledge for obvious reasons because the movie's going to end and that's not going to matter. But that idea too, there's like something here. That there's always little beginnings of all these ideas that I'm like, okay, there's something there, but no.
In their defense, though, the sword-wielding guy does have some lines that kind of does sell their theme without being too ridiculous. Here.
We would have given you a life of luxury. All you had to do was provide children. And the Order would have showered you with gifts.
But fuck the Order.
See, like, that's, to me, was more effective. Like, that's still the same message, right, for the most part? But it's just like the bad guy laying down his law or whatever.
Yeah. They don't not pepper it in and then save it all for this big dump. They pepper it in and then do a big dump as well. That's what like ruins it or whatever.
The reason his was fine too was he's already this master blaster mind of a child idiot who thinks a whole lot of good shit is going on in this thing while he is protecting 3 idiots and a guy dressed like a lady. Like there's not a society here. There's not. I don't even know how they live, honestly. Like what they're eating seems to be of question here. They're 1 mile from a well where you would get water. God knows how far they are from the Walmart. Like what's happening here?
I kind of like that they don't explain them though. As well.
I just think it's because they can't.
They can't.
There's one thing like it's like what are those things walking in the background of Mad Max? But it's another to be like I cannot physically explain these things over here. Sure. Don't ask.
It's a hard line to walk there though. 'Cause sometimes you over-explain stuff and it ruins it when you didn't need to.
So, I don't need over-explanation. You could show me like a little like tarp where they're growing weed or anything, and I would infer like what they're doing. Oh, they're making meth. Like anything like that would be totally fine. Weed wouldn't make sense based on their location, but you know what I mean? Like something where it's like, oh, that's what they're doing under the guise of LARPing or whatever they're doing out there in the woods. Like how this society would ever have been, let alone grow as they want. It's not much of a society here.
No. Yeah. Anything else, guys, with Roadhead?
Well, just to say before we move, if we're moving to whatever, the that turning point that we talked about, where it's like I think it's exactly halfway through the movie when she gets kidnapped by him and he begins to talk. Like right before that, I was like, okay, we've gotten through the whole first thing, and now it can be something different. We can add to it. We can find out more about the dude or something. Crazy can happen. We can ratchet something up. She's like hallucinating or seeing phantom people. Things don't feel like they're real. At one point, one of the characters says, "This doesn't feel like it's real," and I'm like, "Are things not real? Can things be crazy and weird?" And yeah, everything that we're talking about with these weird cultists in the middle of the desert is what that is. That's what that turning point turns into and stuff. And that's the ultimate like a disappointment for me, is like we were saying, like the first part could have been fine if the second part like went into some direction that was like more interesting or better.
I keep thinking of like different ways to take this movie that still kind of accomplishes the same thing. Like they could have all been on some sort of drug trip.
Yeah.
And everything could have been imagined. Then you wrap back up at the beginning, and they all solve their internal conflicts through this shared like drug trip experience, and then all come out better people or changed people. That's the thing.
Like establish that they all have reasons to want to go escape their normal life, and that these desert-dwelling Mad Max people represent the world that they're trying to leave behind, and they defeat them, or not, or something, right? And it's all a like metaphor for something, right? I love dumb stuff like that. It's great. Do something.
It's movies are like so much of a movie relies on character and getting attached to a character and going through the journey with them. The character arc is important. And when you're spending that much time with characters, this movie does spend that much time. It's not a slasher. It's not one-dimensional characters being killed in fun ways. It's so much personal story and dynamic between everybody. And then to just end their story with nothing. Like, it's not even a joke. It doesn't mean anything. They just get killed.
Yeah.
It just ruins the whole thing for me. I don't know.
If it would have been a funny death or something, you could have at least been like, "Oh,
sarcastic,
you capped it there." Stinger, something at the end to like okay, there it is. Because what did you accomplish? You didn't set up a sequel. Like there was no good reason to do this thing. These aren't characters, the ones that are living anyway. That you'd be like, "Oh yeah, can't wait to see what they do in the next one." There's no.
Their deaths weren't shocking. It was just like confusing, I guess.
And no one takes drugs and then talks to a decapitated head.
Well,
what the hell?
Depends what your drug of choice is.
Depends what drugs are doing.
I would have liked this to have said like a.
Someone should have been like, "I've got some better drug here," and then they should have ended up talking to like decapitated heads. I thought it was a perfect opportunity for that. They didn't do it.
They were smoking weed, and they should have been doing some other drugs to start hallucinating.
Yeah, she should have been on some crazy antidepressants or something, because she seems to be going through some shit that somebody would have been prescribing.
There's stuff here. There is stuff here. There's lots of positives to the movie, but ultimately,
that always bothers me more when like they were onto something and then it didn't really like come together, didn't really pay it off or whatever. I always like hold more of a grudge where I'm like, hey, like this movie's fine, but I'm like upset that like it didn't land these things for me.
Yeah, I wonder what the script looks like. I mean, it is interesting because it's not a writer-director. This as a solo vision. This is a writer and then the director interpreting that script. So I do wonder if the script is this, or if there's been changes made or whatever that kind of changes the vision of the story. Either way,
didn't do anything I've seen before.
Or
the director did the Belko experiment. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was all right.
Interesting. I was gonna say maybe they had to compromise the vision because money or other constraints.
Totally believable.
Or COVID constraints.
Either way, this isn't like a knock. I think the directing is pretty good. Like, I would definitely watch this guy's next movie. I think the story kind of fails by the end, I guess is my point. So.
Yeah. I would have split into two different movies or made like some dramatic shifts a little earlier on. I like watching a movie, though, that like where it infuriates you. I like going, how would I have done this? What could I do to save these things? And that's like something I enjoy doing at the end of a movie. Like let's play the what if game. What if we made it good?
I guess it's a good thing that it infuriates you. It obviously was effective in some ways. That maybe what infuriates you is something that somebody else can really love. So I don't know. It's not like
any feeling's good.
I guess we're not all being like it was so mindlessly boring and stuff. So Yeah, feeling
Yeah.
is good.
I was gonna say boring is the worst thing. Yes, feeling is good if it makes you feel literally anything. It's better than it being boring.
Yeah,
Yes,
honestly,
definitely.
I think because I did get attached to the characters, so there was something effective there, and that's why I'm kind of upset because it just didn't end the way I thought it could, or in a way
Yeah,
that
well,
yeah.
Like you said before, is like, well, I would watch this guy's next thing, or I'd be interested to see these people. These actors were good, so
Great,
if they pop up in something, I'd be like, oh, okay, right. But that's the mark of like a disappointment, right? As opposed to like
The lead
you
girl
know,
was, I thought, was pretty good.
She
But,
was
like,
great.
Yeah.
she
That
was
late
given
woman,
the
yeah.
most like ability to do a character thing, but I thought just some of the lines they made her say like kind of diminished some of the things that she would have done. But I did like everything she put on the screen. Like they were all pretty good and competent. Again, the problems were not the
100%.
actors. It was what they were told to do or what they had to do, etc. It's definitely a movie that like
what's your
No, like, what I
rating?
mean is,
It's a
that
movie.
is mind-blowing right now.
we
Can we
wouldn't
just
be
take a moment
talking
to
about it
appreciate
if
that
it were
phrase?
if it were that bad. So like,
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of time when you're watching a movie that's actually a bad movie. After like 10 minutes, everyone has the same thought, and it's kind of done. You peter out, and you're like,
Yeah,
I'm not uploading that. It wasn't
there's-
worth talking about. This one, I could see us. You go into like a conversation. You're talking about things, or where things would have changed, what you would have done, how this went, things you liked, things you didn't like, and that
There's
means
layers,
there was
yeah.
substance. Exactly.
Sure,
Exactly.
sure. Yeah, Roadhead. You know, it is a thing. It
Hell
is a
yeah.
movie, and we watched it and talked about it.
Facts.
Facts. And Ian missed out on the good Roadhead. What are you gonna do? Maybe for
Maybe
the
next
sequel, we'll
time.
get him back.
Yeah.
It's Roadhead 2: Revenge of Head. Road.
If they made a sequel to this and it was a prequel when that was a thriving community in the desert,
lake.
and like what happened
Okay.
that made the things drop off and this and that, and there's so many skulls there.
Oh, and
that
like
I
the
would
lake
imagine,
is still a lake, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
and our,
but it's
our
like
big
start-
guy is
Oh,
slowly
but it's-
killing people that are going against the thing until there's
Yeah.
like not people left.
And the lake is like starting to dry out, and it's like
That's
a
where
crisis
the
for
dissension in the
people.
ranks starts.
Yes,
We're like, we
where they're
only
like,
have water for
we
another
need to
30
leave.
days.
Why do we stay here? We must
can't
stay
leave.
here.
I am
Ah.
the king. I hold the scepter. I am in charge of what's happening. Kill Elliot. And
I would love if like all of the tourists and people dying was just like this background noise, and it was all about the Game of Thrones of those idiots or something. That would be a daring film to make that no one will ever make, but that would be hilarious. Anyway,
All right.
yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's gonna do it for Roadhead.
That's bad.
Stefan and Lee, thank you so much for joining me for another review.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having
It
me.
was a good time. I don't think we insulted anyone this episode. I think we did a good job, guys.
It's all about how thick your skin is, but yes.
Very good. Yeah, that's gonna do it, guys. Roadhead is out on June 4th. Check it out if any of this sounds interesting to you. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you here next time. Everybody, oh wait, don't leave yet. Everybody, go to Cannibal Video, cannibal.video, to get to their YouTube, or cannibalvideo.com to get to their merch. And they cover movies and stuff. I'm just speaking for them. I'm sorry for.
You're
speaking
doing a
for
great
you.
job. This is wonderful.
He's doing better than we do.
We're gonna record this and
So,
just use that instead.
My new
I'll
outro.
say-
There you go. You guys, thank you guys again, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.